Greetings and salutations. This is Abdelhadi with The Bitter Truth, where we may not have all the answers, but we're going to ask an awful lot of questions. You can also become a supporter of the show and do a Patreon thing, whatever you want to do, by visiting thebittertruth.info. And there we have some fabulous swag to make your life better if you don't like the Patreon thing. The little donate button to help support the show. Today, I'm talking to Cindy Sheehan. You know her, you love her. She's the host of Cindy Sheehan's Soapbox, and I'm sure we're going to get into her story a little bit. She's been on the show before, and I'm not going to, get into everything in the intro. But if you know who she is, you know why you know who she is. So, Cindy, how are you?
Pretty good. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. Dodgers awesome. Playing tonight.
Yes, we're both big Dodger fans. We were talking about that.
Yeah.
Of course, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, so
as was I.
I moved up here to Giants country, and almost everybody I know is a Giants fan. And they always ask me, like, how can you be a Dodger fan? You live up here. And I asked them, if you moved to Los Angeles, would you become a Los Angeles fan? And they're like, oh God, no way. I'm like, well, see, there you go.
And we wonder why the two-party system doesn't work.
It is so much like that. It is just, to me, baseball is supposed to be fun, and rivalries make it exciting.
Yeah,
right?
they do. Yeah, they do.
And so it's like some Giants fans act like the Dodgers should have just forfeited because the Giants deserved the NLCS or whatever. But whatever.
Well, the Giants advanced on the same kind of bullshit call too. So it's karma, right?
And it's baseball.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bad calls go for you. Sometimes the bad calls go against you. And I really believe it evens out in the end, right?
Well, yeah. And that's why I think most people like sports, right? Because 90% of the time, it's pretty fair. 90% of the time, the calls are pretty, accurate.
Decent.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like once in a while you get that Rams, Saints bullshit or whatever. And even the guy who did the interference, like, shrugged his shoulders. Okay, I guess I'm and he wasn't busted. He goes, oh shit. Okay, great. And then the Saints advance, right? Same thing. Yeah, you're right. And I think that's why people like sports so much, is because it's kind of fair. There's no Bernie fixing. There's none of that shit. Right. There's no advancing some demented death rattle, to the nomination by everyone. Oh, okay. Listen, it's my Obama impression, by the way. Okay. Listen, you got to give up your delegates to
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah, give it an advance. Yeah, because I don't have the Obama thing down. It's not like my Chris Walken. My Chris Walken is a lot better. But hey, and speaking of such shenanigans and bullshit, I mean, again, another war criminal passed away. And that's kind of why I reached out to you, because I know you have a familiarity with war criminals and their bullshit shenanigans. And so like, how is it that I lost like some black friends again? Because I was bagging on Colin Powell, and some people.
I'm sure you weren't bagging on him. I'm sure you were just telling the truth.
Well, yeah, I wasn't saying he beat his mother. I was just like, right. I just say, war criminal. And this one guy that I thought I knew really well. Since I moved here, I haven't seen him in person, but I used to know him in LA. And he completely lost his shit. He put something up there, as a black man, I'm proud of all his accomplishments. He starts listing off all his shit in the military. Right. And I'm kind of going, yeah, well, to achieve all those accomplishments, you got to kill a shit ton of people. And most of them are civilians, and you got to take their shit for free.
And most of them are brown or
black, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, name me a white country Colin Powell invaded in his entire career. Yeah, I can't do it, right? Unless you count that bullshit that they call Arabs Caucasian, which they do that to not give me a fucking student, grant, but that's okay. But yeah, it's like, so what's with this hagiography? Why are people so eager beaver when Don Rumsfeld died? Same thing, right?
Well, first of all, there's this thing that people say you shouldn't talk ill of the dead, but you should only speak the truth about the dead. You shouldn't, like you said, say things like he beat his mother, which he might have done, but there's no record of that, right?
Right.
But also, it's Trump broke the left beyond repair. And when I'm talking about the left, I'm not talking about, the liberals. I think he broke liberals beyond beyond repair because if you remember, Colin Trump came out against Trump.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And so that made it okay. And Bush Jr. too. Bush Jr. is now a hero of the liberal Democrats.
They got rehab. Yeah, that's right.
And so that's one of the reasons. But another reason is this country more or less worships war and worships war criminals. I mean, we're a country based on war and war criminals. The thing I don't get, though, is how Black people can support this system. And, you know, to rise to the top of the system, if you're a person of color or a woman, you have to act like a white supremacist war criminal, right? It's like Hillary Clinton, Condoleezza Rice,
sure. Gina Haspel,
Colin Powell, anybody who's doesn't look like all the previous white presidents we've had or white secretaries of state. You have to act like them. And you don't only have to act like them, you have to act worse than they do. I think Hillary Clinton's one of the biggest war criminals in, you know, recent history.
Absolutely.
And you know, so that's just the thing. It's all about identity politics. It's not about really their policies or what they did. You know, come on. He went to the UN and lied and is responsible for the deaths of over 1 million Iraqi people. Right. Colin Powell, my son Casey was in the military. He was my last hope. You know, he was my last hope in the Bush administration for someone to be sane and put the brakes on and say, wait a minute, because clearly he didn't agree with the policy.
Right.
But he went to the UN and sacrificed himself to sell it to people. But I still didn't agree with. I still didn't go, oh, Colin Powell said it was good, so it must be good.
That's right.
I was just hoping that he was going to be the sane one, be a human being, not, you know, everybody's like, well, he was a soldier, he had to follow orders. Well, look how well that worked out for the Nazis at Nuremberg, you know, just following orders. And to me, that's not an excuse. No. Everybody's saying he's an honorable man. No, it's very dishonorable. And being a mass murderer and murdering innocent civilians, that's just the lowest of the low. He's just really, and then, you know, like you said, Donald Rumsfeld and all these jerks who finally go to, you know, like all of us are going to, you know, all of us are going to die. But when these guys finally die, history gets rewritten. But the thing that bothers me the most about it is they die wealthy.
That's right.
They die beloved. They die, you know, surrounded by their families. They don't die in prison or, you know, in any other way that war criminals.
Or in a horrible explosion while they watch their kids die.
Right. So that's what bothers me most about this.
Sure. Well, and that's the thing, though, too. It's like, I mean, you know, one of the things that I was refreshed because I was reading a lot of crap on him. One of the things he said was, you know, that's a blemish on my record, you know, but what was I supposed to do? He's the president. I'm like, well, you know, as a Secretary of State, you're a cabinet member. You're not a soldier anymore.
Right.
You know, you can pipe up and you can resign over something, right? You can say, you know, this is wrong. And, you know, get on the blogosphere or whatever, you can do that. I mean, you know, when John Kerry had balls back in the day, you know, he wasn't a cabinet member or anything, but he was an officer in the Army and came back and said, this Vietnam thing is bullshit. You know, we just keep fighting for one hill over the next. And we're, you know, I got friends that got shot and I got shot and I got my ass shot. You know, it's like, you know, but we, like you said, we worship war. I mean, I got my Chewy Blue friends out here in Austin. It's supposed to be so, you know, it is liberal. It's corporate Democrat, Chewy Blue, MSCIA liberal, right? So they'll say stupid shit like, I have 5 friends that think like you and me. The rest of my friends love them to pieces, great people, but they're just completely baked in the brain. And they think I'm insane, which is great. But they'll say shit like, well, we need a more muscular response to China, right? And I'm going, yeah, that's super duper. We just got our asses handed to us in the Middle East by a group of people with no Air Force, no Navy, no Army. They barely had rocket launchers, and they kicked our ass for 20 years solid. And now we're going to go to China across the street, which means we have to go there. And they have nukes and they have a real Navy and a real Army. And we keep like fucking with Taiwan I would love for China to sell weapons to California. That'd be great. They could sell $5 billion worth of weapons to California and send their National Guard guys in to train our, cops on how to, defect from the United States.
After Hillary Clinton's campaign, I've been against Hillary Clinton, since before Casey died, for her support of the wars. But the people she lost in the Electoral College. It's not like she didn't know that she had to win in Pennsylvania,
right,
and Ohio and all those places. She knew that to be president of the United States, you need to win these. And some of these places she didn't even go to. So instead of just like conceding that she lost, her supporters started having this big Russiagate lie.
Right.
And I'd be like, are you joking? You would rather have World War III than admit your shitty candidate lost?
Yes.
Can you imagine you're fomenting these problems with Russia? And like you said about China, they have nukes. And they're not just going to sit around and let the United States roll over them.
No.
And so to me, it was just think about what you're doing.
Well, and that's the thing. Okay, I'm sorry, finish.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say she was the worst candidate they could have picked, and until Joe Biden. And then I was like, wow, I didn't know anybody would be worse than Hillary
Clinton. Yeah, I when they got Joe Biden, I was going, wow, because I didn't think they could be anybody worse than Hillary. And I was going, Jesus Christ, yes, there can be.
And then his vice president it's just incredible. It's a caucusocracy. It's when the shittiest people in our country rise to the top and become leaders. They call it a caucusocracy, where the worst people in your electorate are actually leading the country.
Yeah. Well, and to your point a second ago, I get in arguments with this all the time with people that, get mad about the third party thing or whatever. And they'll go right to 2000 and they'll go right to Gore Bush. And instead of taking responsibility for Gore running a shitty campaign where he didn't even mention climate change, not one time. Right. And had he won Tennessee, which was his home state, and had he won Arkansas, which was Bill Clinton's home state, he wouldn't even needed Florida. Right. But he ran such a shitty campaign that they went with Bush.
Right.
And I wasn't a Clinton fan. Right. But he had great numbers coming out and most people think he was great. Why wouldn't you bring him on the campaign trail if you're trying to win the presidency? Why would you let it go that close, especially when you have the personality of cardboard?
Right.
I mean, let's face it, at least Slick Willie, he had that charm, what I'm saying? He played saxophone on Arsenio Hall. It was real nice, what I'm saying? And
you do a better Bush than you do Obama.
Yeah, I know. I had more practice. I got better at it when he was president, and then it's been 20 years since he left, and I'm okay with it. I'm good. I'm good. I got my Christopher Walken down this last year too. My New Year's resolution was to get my Christopher Walken better, which I won't do here, but I'm just saying. But that's the thing though. It's like they won't blame. They'll blame Ralph Nader for getting not even 1% of the vote, right? And they won't even talk about the Supreme Court stopping the count, literally stopping the count with 130 odd ballots left to go. So it just.
Do you want to hear an interesting statistic about 2000 in Florida?
Yeah.
You probably already heard it, but maybe your listeners haven't. More Democrats in Florida voted for George Bush than the total number of votes Ralph Nader got in Florida. So if those Democrats had voted for Gore, it wouldn't have been so close.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they voted for Bush instead of voting for Gore. So actually, Ralph Nader had no influence on the outcome of Florida.
At all. But that's again to your point, though. They don't take responsibility. They would rather go to World War III than admit that they had a woman who had more baggage than Cleopatra on vacation. Okay, who was a fucking war criminal who voted for Iraq, and then I love how they apologize for Libya. Right? They'll sit there and go, well, Obama felt really bad about Libya. Did he? Did he feel really bad? I would love for him to feel bad at the International Criminal Court as he's being tried like we tried Nazis in The Hague. We hung Saddam Hussein for less than what these motherfuckers do.
Absolutely. I guess it's the 10th anniversary of the destruction of Libya.
Yeah.
And so it's bringing back a lot of stuff. And, I said on my Facebook wall today, in a long list of things that Obama did, that was probably the worst thing he did, was destroying an entire country, a country where they had health care, they had housing as a right. Like when people got married, they got their money for their house. And I mean, it was just so much good happening in Libya. Now it was leading that region in all of these wonderful programs, but now it's leading in, slavery. It's leading
real,
in
by
poverty.
the way, real slavery.
Yeah.
Real, not working at Walmart slavery. I mean, like real
Right.
slaves, like people, like escapees from Yemen, being sold for $200 to $400 a pop.
Human trafficking. And so they just absolutely destroyed that country that could have been a model state. And I'm not saying Gaddafi was a wonderful guy or any leader is a wonderful person, but compared to what we have.
Well, he did more for his people than our guys do for us.
Absolutely. 100%.
And they were rich. They had I forget the number, 144,000 tons of gold or something like that. That's why he wanted to do his own, he wanted to do the African, currency. He wanted to call it the Afro, right? And you could look this up in the African National Congress when he was made chairman for his 4-year stint. It was like 2 pages in the new charter. And he just put it in there thinking, oh, well, I'm cool. I'm like, you should have kept your nukes, Mo. You should have kept your fucking nukes.
Yeah, it was Pan-Africanism from a person who wasn't African. But he was trying to be the leader of his entire country.
Right. His country and also take a continent to the next level.
Like Hugo Chavez did in Venezuela.
That's right. And we don't handle that very well.
No, not at all.
I made a joke the other day when I saw the anniversary. I was going, yeah, you can't have a brown Germany. We won't allow a brown Germany. We'll allow a white Germany. Right. We'll allow a white Germany to have car companies and former slaves that were Jews working at BMW, but we won't have it. And then, again, the crunchy reds is what I call the fucking Republicans, and the chewy blues is what I call the corporate Democrats. They'll sit there and go, well, Lockerbie. I'm like, oh, really? Well, we blew a fucking plane out of the sky in 1988. And Bush famously said, well, America doesn't apologize for anything. Well, whoa, that's amazing.
That's right.
That's not a fucking a crime. How come Bush isn't? Or I think it was under his watch. It was under Reagan's watch. It was 1988 when that plane. Why didn't we bring up Reagan and his entire cabinet? It was a military missile that shot that plane out of the sky, right? But like you said, we are a warlike country, and now it's not even up for a debate. We are a right wing country. Absolutely. We have the Democrats, which became Republicans, and then the Republicans became batshit insane. Because in the 90s, when Clinton and Gore went right, I think the Republicans were pulling their hair out, the crime bill, that was supposed to be ours, like NAFTA. They just they lost their shit. So we got to shoot more black kids with police. Oh my, we got to do something. We got to fuck with abortion rights, and we got to, make sure that no one has food stamps. We have 25 million starving people right now. And it's like, and then they never, you notice how the Republicans never ask for consensus, right? They don't give a shit about when they're running things. They don't go across the aisle. They don't give a fuck. But the Democrats are, well, we want to go across the aisle.
Well, that's because the Democrats need cover.
Right.
So again, they never blame themselves for anything. So they can, and then when Obama had the House and the Senate and the Democrats had the presidency, then they started blaming it on blue dog Democrats.
Right.
But
they had a super majority for almost 2 years, though. Fuck the blue dogs. When you have a super majority, it's not Sinema and Manchin don't matter,
right?
If you have a super majority, which they did, and they could have run circles and done anything. But see, but then right back to the original point of kind of what we started talking about. What really angered me, well, for example, when Hillary Clinton said that Kissinger was her best friend and mentor or whatever,
right?
And nobody batted an eye.
I know that should have immediately disqualified her for anything
right away.
She should be banned from society. That's what I'm saying about these people. I did an interview with the Washington Post a few weeks. I don't know when it was. It doesn't matter. But it was recently, and it was about how Bush's legacy is rehabilitated.
Oh, yeah.
And so they reached out to me. I usually don't do interviews for these people. The last 2 interviews I've done for corporate media, I've actually interviewed them before they interviewed me, because I'm like, I've been around the block too many times. You're going to twist my words. You're going to make me look stupid.
Right.
And, so I don't want to participate in it. But
right.
So anyway, so I interviewed this guy, and I was convinced that he was legit and his story was going to be legit. But I told him, I said, these people, Bush included, they should, what we were just saying, they should be in prison for war crimes and crimes against humanity. But they're running around playing with their grandchildren, yucking it up, going to football games, just living these wonderful, prosperous lives, when people like my family are going to suffer for the rest of our lives. It doesn't matter until the very last Sheehan is gone. We're going to be suffering because of what George Bush did. And I said, I will put my integrity and the quality of my family up against theirs any day.
Sure.
And we struggle like every other family is doing these days.
Sure.
And so we're not out living the life of luxury. And, it's been, I don't even know how long since I've been on like a cable news show or whatever, because we don't toe the preferred line. We don't spew their approved messages.
At
right?
all. No, well, yeah. Well, you, Chris Hedges, you're never going to be on MSCIA or Fuckhead News ever again.
Well, I was, but not, once I recognized that they were the part of the problem.
Right.
And that the Democrats.
Well, they loved you during the Bush administration, though.
Yeah, right. But then when I left the Democrat Party and ran against Nancy Pelosi, it's like I dropped off the face of the earth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's because they don't want to take responsibility. And you lost your son. I mean, you've been on the show before and we've talked about this, and you are out there. Anyone knows who you are, knows why you got doing what you're doing, but you lost your son. So part of when you're talking about struggling, you're talking about struggling with loss, which was needless. It wasn't like a car accident or cancer, right? It was going to a bullshit fucking war, and
totally avoidable. 100%.
Totally avoidable. 100%. And so it's different. I know people that have had a family member murdered. It's different.
Yeah.
That's a different death. And people don't understand unless you're close to it. It's like it's a different death than a car accident or cancer or, falling off a roof while you're re-roofing it or something just freakish, right? Just and so but they're going to put people like you on the margins because you are telling the truth. And the few times that, like, say, a Glenn Greenwald or Jimmy Dore gets on Tucker Carlson, again, these chewy blue assholes lose their fucking mind.
Right.
And I'm going, well, it's like if Jimmy Dore went on that show and towed the Republican line, then yeah, I'd be pissed at him too. But he doesn't. He goes on there and he does his Jimmy Dore shit. He does the same thing. He doesn't
toe the Democrat line. So that's probably why they
hate him.
Out. Yeah.
Because he's blaming the Obama administration for Trump. And then he's holding he's holding Trump's feet to the fire on a fucking Fox show. Right. But he's also holding Obama's, because he's condemning the system. He's indicting the entire system. It's like, and these assholes, the same thing. They think we had no problems before January of 2017.
Right. Exactly.
And everything was super.
That's I've heard rhetoric like Trump is the most dangerous person on the planet right now.
Heard that too. And I was like, well, that's adorable. That's adorable. Really? Did you come up with that all by yourself? That's adorable.
I just like scratch my head and go, really?
Well, in the meantime, Blue Jesus, because I used to call Trump Cheeto Jesus, which I thought was pretty catchy, but I stole it, ironically enough, from a Republican guy. But then when Cheeto Jesus left and Blue Jesus came, I was like, I wrote an essay for my website last year called Lullaby and Goodnight, the day after the election. And I'm like, you watch how many y'all go to sleep. Now here are a year later. And Biden has deported 690,000 asylum seekers, right?
I was just going to talk about the border.
Yeah. And Trump's best year was what? 300,000?
And Obama, couldn't even touch Obama's numbers.
Obama's first term numbers were first term numbers doubled Trump's numbers. And now Biden is already at where Trump was in 2 years. And the year's not even over. We got 2 months left.
Right.
But now they call them facilities because I guess you get a blowjob and a continental breakfast and an espresso when you're it's not kids in cages anymore.
In blue Jesus's cage.
In blue Jesus's cage, because it's not blue Jesus's cage. It's the facility. And I, sorry, those of you that are offended by the blowjob reference. It's just like, if I'm in a facility, I would expect a continental breakfast and an espresso and yes, a BJ. So, but yeah, but they don't accept that. They don't accept that he's banned the press from those areas. But there's no press down there to film this shit anymore. But when Trump was doing it, that's all you saw. And half those. And
then they would show pictures to accompany their photos that would accompany their articles that were actually taken during the Obama administration.
That's right. And again, it's like, and now we have this. It's just, and they whitewashed Biden's entire fucking career. Do you know how, and you probably had this too. I don't know if you did. My biggest frustration this last cycle was when I would go, well, you do know what the crime bill is, right? And then people go, oh, there you go in the past again. Like, do you know what the crime bill is? Do you know what it is? You're BLM, right? If you're BLM, you got to be able, you got to know what the crime bill is, because the reason we got BLM is because of the crime bill. I mean, there was a Republican wet dream. Again, that's why they tore their hair out. There was 53 death penalty crimes in the crime bill. 53. I don't believe in the death penalty because I don't think we administer it fairly. Obviously, it's very racist. But if we had a death penalty, I'm like, I'm sorry, if I believed in the death penalty, I'd be like a couple things, like murder, some rapes, right? That's about it. Like 53 things. What are the rest? Jaywalking, hit and run driving. I'm like, what the fuck do you have a death penalty? Like more than a couple of there's 53 things on there. And then there's the expansion of the police and the military gear that the police get, right? Like my day job when I was in California, I had about 60 law enforcement agencies, part of my group thingy, right? And I'm talking little towns in California that like Arcadia, right? Azusa, they got tanks. The city of Azusa has 2 fucking tanks. Why?
Right?
Why? A couple of meth dealers? I mean, you got a little area in Azusa, the meth motel area in Azusa, which is about maybe 4 square blocks. You need tanks for that. You need riot gear for that. It's insane.
Right. It's insane. It's totally insane.
But then these people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The Me Too movement doesn't want to hear about Biden's this absolute stunning, horrible attack against Anita Hill when she was trying to tell her experience with Clarence Thomas. It was just he really demeaned her.
Oh my, that's a good word. That's a nice word.
It was just really
disgusting.
It was just an awful thing. But the Me Too movement doesn't want to, oh gosh, like you said, that was in the past.
Yeah. And the other thing they love to say is that they love to go, well, he didn't vote for Clarence Thomas. He didn't have to. He helped him.
I know, huh?
So what, he didn't vote for him? I didn't even know he didn't vote for Clarence Thomas until 3 years ago. I thought he voted for Clarence Thomas.
He carried his water for him.
Fucking right, he did.
The nomination.
That's right.
He got him the nomination, so he could afford to vote for him. He could afford not to vote for him.
That's right.
Because he knew he was going to be whatever they call it, approved. I don't know.
Well, confirmed, right? Confirmed. So but
confirmed. Yeah.
Okay. And you made this point a second ago, but we kind of moved off of it. But you were saying that we're a very warlike nation, which is obvious. We get a hard on for war. We just do. I mean, most people think John Wayne is real. They think Red Dawn's a documentary. Right. Why do you think the so-called liberal? Why do you think the so-called Democrat? Because Republicans, I get it, right? They're dyed in the wool with this shit. They believe that it went from Jesus to the apostles to the founding fathers and whatever. But the so-called Democrat, the so-called educated voter, right? The so-called liberal. Why do you think they get such a hard on for this shit?
Since Casey died, and I've been very active in the movement, I've been able to discern some things. When I went to Crawford, Texas and set up Camp Casey in the summer of 2005, I had a bunch of organizations come out to support me. And I thought that they were truly anti-war. I thought that they came out to support me, but what they were coming out to do was to use the energy of the Camp Casey movement to actually specifically get the Democrats back in majority of the House of Representatives in the 2006 election. Right. That was their goal, was to do that. And so what I figured that there's very few people that are actually against war, that are what I call anti-imperialists. It doesn't matter if it's a Bush war, an Obama war, or a Trump war, or a Biden war. It doesn't matter who's the president of the United States. We're against U.S. imperialism and intervention that way. And I found out since Camp Casey that there's very few people like that. It's like, then we had Syria during Obama, and everybody was saying, oh, but
Assad's a dictator.
We got to get Assad out. Assad is a horrible dictator, just like what they were saying, what the right was saying about Saddam. Right now, it was the left. The left, all these anti-imperialist, so-called anti-war organizations, and that's the Syria thing was like when I knew if, you can be anti-imperialist up until Syria, and then all of a sudden you're supporting U.S. intervention because, Assad is bad to his people or whatever, which isn't even true. Then it's, I haven't found that point where I would go, oh yeah, the U.S. needs to intervene. I haven't come to that point where I publicly go, oh, it's a good war and the U.S. needs to invade wherever. But so I think especially after Obama, the Democrats and the liberal Democrats and the anti-war Democrats put so much time and effort into getting Obama elected. Mm-hmm. And when it came that he was just atrocious and even worse than Bush, then they were like, well, we can't oppose war anymore because that would mean opposing Democrats. And just a quick story. There used to be an organization called United for Peace and Justice. Mm-hmm. And they were kind of a federation of smaller anti-war groups. But they had their board and, they made decisions. They would elect a board. They would pick from these groups to elect a board. But anyway, on the 5th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq was 2008. And that was during the 2008 primaries, right? And so we wanted to have a big demo in Washington, D.C., because it was the 5th anniversary of the invasion of Iraq. And what by we, I mean, some affiliated groups like Answer was one of the groups that wanted to do it. But most of the groups in United for Peace and Justice said we can't do it. It's an election year. Ugh. We don't want to embarrass the Democrats. And I think that's why they don't like me anymore, because I embarrass the Democrats. Running against Pelosi, I was supported by some people running against Pelosi in that genre because they wanted Bush impeached, right? But it was more, a lot of people saw my campaign more about running against Bush than running against Pelosi, actually. Mm-hmm. And so when I ran against Nancy Pelosi the same year in 2008, but when I left the Democrat Party and I said the Democrats are worse than the Republicans, they didn't like somebody with at that time, my voice that got heard by a lot of people saying stuff like that.
That's right.
So we don't want to embarrass the Democrats. And that year they called a winter soldier, but it was actually in the spring. And winter soldier was when the Vietnam soldiers came back from Vietnam and told their stories about war crimes and stuff like that. So instead of doing a mass demo against Iraq, which most of the Democrats supported by then, they couldn't couldn't say I voted against it because they kept on voting for the funding.
That's right.
And I would be like, you can't be against something and pay for it. It'd be like my son coming up to me and say, Mom, give me some money so I can go buy some crack. I'm not going to support that and financially. And so by then it was clear that almost everybody in Congress, they couldn't say, well, I voted against Iraq. So, but because they were voting with the power of their purse strings to fund it. So this winter soldier thing, they had some don't words they gave to the people who testified. They couldn't say Democrat. And the only two I remember were Democrat and imperialism. But there were 8 other words they couldn't say. And you know what? If I ever gave a speech and got a list of don't words, I'd probably say them in every paragraph.
Fuck yeah.
I'd find a way to work all those words into my speech.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, my dad's Palestinian, right? So like when I was little, he'd always say, this country's imperialism. And I hated hearing that because when I was little, I was kind of hung up with being American and shit. I didn't want to hear it. And plus, my dad, he didn't sound cool. Maybe if he said it with a British accent, maybe I would have dug it more, but whatever. But then I got older, got into college, and I'm like, motherfucker, yeah, we are. We are an imperialist, an empire, like the former Brit Empire. We take over, and there's not a country. I've had this one vet on a couple of times, and we did a 2-parter about 2 years ago. We called it America's Greatest Hits, part 1 and 2, and we went from the Spanish-American War all the way through Obama, and there was not a war that we're involved in that wasn't based on a lie.
Right. Absolutely. 100%.
Lusitania, the Maine, even World War II to a large degree to get into it. FDR was hard up to get into it. Pearl Harbor. That was, the apologists like to say, well, he thought they were going to bomb Singapore, which the Japanese did take over, and the Philippines. So fine. But if you know that and by the way, the Philippines were still ours at that point.
Right.
So is Singapore. So if we're going to be doing that, I mean, so it goes Korea, Vietnam. There's not a single war that we didn't go into based on a lie, Tonkin, all of it. So when people get all hard up and go, well, we need. Why do we need to do jack and shit? Let's focus on the fact that we shoot 1,000 unarmed black and brown people and a few whites every year. And since 2005, there's been 16,000 of these shootings, and only 3 cops ever been convicted. Let's focus on that.
Right.
Russia should have fucking invaded us after the 2000 election.
And I think 0 during Obama.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. Well, actually, Eric Gardner.
And he could have invoked people had their civil rights.
100%. The one did happen during Eric Gardner, but he was a Chinese. Okay. But he was a Chinese kid in NYPD. He was in the projects with another cop, and he freaked out and shot a guy. Right. First of all, what the fuck are you doing in the projects anyway? How about you just leave those people alone unless they call you to come do something? But they were just patrolling the project, right? But my theory is he got roasted because he was Chinese. The Eric Gardner thing just happened, right? And it was like 5 Italian cops, and they all got off. And then the week later, this Chinese kid shot a guy in the projects, and they made an example of him. He got 5 years, right? But in my personal opinion, I think it's because he was Chinese, a Chinese American, right? He was like, but still, it's like, but that's the thing is like, when you say to these people that, we commit human rights violations, we commit, like last summer when, in Portland, when, Trump was rounding up everybody in unmarked vans without reading them their rights and all that kind of crap. And everyone's like, oh my God, it's a fashion. Well, who the fuck got a habeas corpus? Obama.
Right.
Obama. He got a posse comitatus and habeas corpus. But if you say that to the Chewy Blues, they lose their shit. He left the toolbox for Trump to use. And he famously was trying to like roll back some of the shit that he did because he didn't think Trump was going to win. He's like, oh, well, the habeas corpus thing, maybe we should put that back into the NDAA, and And they're going, no, we're good. You know, we got a 3-branch thing here. You know, we got the judicial and the legislature and the executive. Well, no, he won't he won't take over like that. And then he lost his fucking mind and did everything Obama was afraid he would do. But Obama's a constitutional law fucking professor, isn't he?
Yep.
Like, he knows better. See, with Trump, he's stupid. See, like, I hate Trump, but he's stupid. Right. So half the shit he does, I'm like, you know, he doesn't have any idea of optics. He squirts, right. He hoses the people down and then gets out in front of a church holding a Bible, not the Constitution, but the fucking Bible, right? Mm-hmm. To cater to that fucking base. Obama knew better. He was cagey. I mean,
100%.
Right? He knew fucking better.
Slimy. He's slimy.
Slimy motherfucker. Really. Yeah, he knew better. Yeah. And so people apologizing for him. And I go, like, he took two. And I love when they tell me that I'm making this up when they say, I'll go, he took 2 illegal wars and turned them into 7. Oh, well, there you go again. Like, go to UPI, go to the AP, go to any mainstream fucking thing that you read. Mm-hmm. Don't read Truth Dig and the shit that I read. Go read, you know, don't read Black Agenda. Go read your shit. Google it. Quit watching television. Right? Masturbate less in the day and just get on your can and just like Google things for 20 minutes. It's just frustrating. Well, hey, listen,
Cindy, the mental masturbation. The thing that bothers me about these people is they act like this is just minor stuff. Like, oh, just like move on, get over it, go forward. And it's major. They're stuff. Mass murderers, you know, and how many times just because they don't take a gun and kill people doesn't make them mass murderers. And the sorry thing about it is that they have to recruit young people who feel like they don't have a future.
Yep.
And because they probably don't. Mm-hmm. And so they recruit all these young people to go do their killing for them. Mm-hmm. You know, and I think they're just pitiful thugs. And getting back to Colin Powell and the rest, they're pitiful thugs who are going to get a state funeral when, you know, they should have been buried behind the prison with,
that's right,
like their head separated from their body.
In a mass grave.
There really is justice in the world, all the misery and all the graves and unmarked graves and people just, you know, left lying where they are dead. And Colin Powell was a major war criminal in Vietnam. And,
absolutely.
And they're
My Lai,
they're trying to rewrite the Vietnam history like we didn't lose and that it was a good war.
That's
and
right.
Obama gave millions of dollars for this effort. Mm-hmm. You know, he funded this effort by millions of dollars. And Colin Powell didn't just like order war crimes. He actively committed war crimes when he was in Vietnam.
Sure. As did John McCain.
They say he was an honorable person. Oh, yeah. And John McCain's another one.
That's right.
Who hated Trump and just died. So now he's a wonderful person.
That's right. Hating Trump is not a worldview.
Right.
Hating Trump is not a worldview. And to your point a second ago, you know, I don't know how much you follow the American mafia or the history of that, but in any of those trials, most of those capos and dons that were tried, they didn't pull the trigger.
Right.
But they were charged in conspiracy for like 17 murders.
Right.
Or whatever. Right. In addition to tax fraud, whatever. But I'm going, wait, if that guy didn't pull the trigger, his soldiers did. But he's okay. So that, which is fine. That's conspiracy. That's a felony, not collusion, but an actual conspiracy. So why is it that, like you said a second ago, well, they didn't pull the trigger, you know, but they ordered it.
Right.
I don't blame the soldiers. The soldier's a mailman. Yeah, some of them are psychotic and they enjoy that kind of thing. But it's like blaming the mailman.
Right.
You go after the Senate. You go after the Congress. Nancy Pelosi famously would not impeach Bush and Cheney in 2006 when she got the speakership, right? Because she was in the same meetings that condoned torture. She was in the same meeting. You know, so
that's why they don't hold them. They don't hold each other accountable.
That's right.
Because they've all committed the same crimes. You know, they all have their big files on them at the NSA or something. So they're not gonna police themselves. And, you know, that's for sure. And that's just like a sad fact of life. And the American people, you know, we're so conditioned that our only part in this country is voting.
That's right.
You know, and once we vote, then they can do whatever they want to do. And, you know, we shouldn't like interfere in any other ways and talk about a revolution. And then It's like, well, how do you think this country started?
That's right.
By a bunch of people on Twitter or Facebook just bitching about things.
Right.
They actually got off their asses and got something done.
That's right. Well, and wrapping up next few minutes, like, I rant, therefore I am. So, but like, what do you think is the steps moving forward? I work really hard to stay kind of hopeful, because you got to be hopeful, right? Otherwise, you kind of like, you blow your head off. And like Chris Hedges has this great quote that I like a lot. I don't fight fascism to win. I fight fascism to fight fascism. But I would like to win a few.
Right.
And I would like to see,
really
I'd like to see something move forward. Like I'd like to see a revolution, dare I say it. That shit's illegal now, I guess. But we've taken away freedom of assembly. We've taken away free speech. Right. And in my opinion, the DOJ should bring up charges against any contractor that impedes free speech. So Facebook having a government contract, Google having a government contract, Amazon having a government contract. They are acting as an arm of the government on behalf of the government. 70% of surveillance in this country is done by private industry.
Yep.
So they should be taken to task because they are acting on behalf of the government. They're not a business, right? Facebook isn't
Only
a business.
70%, really?
Yeah,
that seems low.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've read that number a lot, like everything from, Mother Jones of the Wall Street Journal. So it's probably a conservative number, but like Bose Allen, Hamilton, and Amazon have the biggest contracts, right? So you're sitting there kind of going, all right, well, fuck. I mean, at one point they have to be held accountable for an impediment to the First Amendment, an impediment to free speech. And we don't seem to get that.
Well, I think the Constitution really, the requirements only apply to us and the benefits accrue to other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think about the Constitution. But what I'm finding these days to give me hope is all the workers who are striking against getting vaccine mandates and, whatever else, their bad working conditions or whatever.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that is a real hopeful sign because, we could never, after 2004, 2005, we could never get the numbers to go to Washington, D.C., to do what I always wanted to do, just shut the whole thing down. If you really, I've been there with 400,000 people. If that energy was there when I was there at that protest, we could have shut the whole town down.
Sure.
But after that, it was just not, we can never get the numbers back up. But when you have people like pilots and doctors and nurses and I can't think of other workers at the moment who actually do have some like juice, they have something to back up with, Amtrak employees, truckers, everybody who can actually put this country to a halt, and I think their vaccine mandates are putting just like, it's like the nail in the coffin of this economy. And is that what they want? Do they want us all just to be like uneducated screen monkeys or something for the rest of our lives?
Yes.
They're finding out that they don't need as many workers. Right. And maybe that was the whole plan of this, this coronavirus.
Well, there's so many of the right workers, right? Because everyone's bitching about Burger King, McDonald's not having anybody. I'm like, okay, motherfuckers, you kept telling them to go do something else. Well, I guess during the pandemic, they went to go do something else.
Right.
And they might be driving Uber or selling real estate. I don't know what the fuck these people are doing, but they're sure as hell not back at a taco place. They
working their buns off for
$7
wages, no benefits. Can't call in sick. So what's that? So these people are making, getting minimum wage. They don't have health coverage, making food with snot running down their nose all the time. It's just like completely disgusting.
Right. And that's kind of the sad misery of it is that, but I'm glad you answered that because there is something. I mean, I'm seeing more stuff. I mean, to me, the COVID was an excuse to pull 2008 again, right? It was just like, it's going to be a land grab. I mean, in Austin here, 200,000 small businesses have closed in America. And in Austin, we lost so many. And it's just like, and what happens? They're going to swoop in. And in Austin, we have this mixed use facility addiction where we knock things down. We make this giant apartment building with a mini mall. and you're going to see more of that shit. Right. And so I think until people learn to protest again, like what you're doing in the early 2000s, and sadly, I think Occupy was like the last big one. People aren't in the habit anymore. Like you said, they're screen monkeys.
Right.
We have our smartphones, and it's just kind of a drag. But Cindy, listen, let me let you do your thing. I appreciate you spending time, kind of enlightening the folks here. The folks.
Thank you for inviting me again, and go Dodgers, right?
Yeah, man.
Do or die game, man.
It is a do or die game. They either go to Atlanta and try to fight 2 more, or they just stay home. So and just kind of kick it. And then I read that the guy they replaced with Justin Turner with. I'm like, okay, he hasn't seen action since 2016. He played 9 regular season games. He had 11 hits, or I'm sorry, he had 11 at bats and 3 hits.
What happened to Justin Turner?
Oh, he pulled a hamstring last night.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah.
That sucks. And the Mac Muncy's out.
Yeah.
Turner
had a double, I think it was, and he was running at first, and his hamstring just went out, and then he got tagged out.
Oh no!
Yeah, he was almost in tears. It was like really bad.
And what's his name's hurt again? The pitcher, and then
Joe Kelly, Bazooka Joe is starting tonight.
Oh, good.
Which in the entire series, I'm going, why the fuck is Joe Kelly not in it? That guy is a surgeon. He's mean.
Scherzer was pitching the other day.
Yeah, he was.
And he said he did terrible, but he couldn't. His arm never warmed up. He had frozen arm the whole game.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on with?
Well, and this thing, like at the beginning of this series, like actually when they played the Cards in the first game, the elimination game, I didn't expect him to make it. Because I was like, if there's a bad decision to be made, Dave Roberts will make it. Dave Roberts he's the Barack Obama of baseball. He's the Barack Obama of baseball.
I just like the last series they had with the Giants, and he wouldn't take that pitcher out. Bueller.
Yeah.
It's because Bueller always beats the Giants. He didn't beat them now. They I don't know how many runs they got off of him, but they had an incredible season. Can you imagine winning 106 games and coming in second?
Yeah, and at the last minute too, because it was the last day that that was the last game of the season that the Giants won to make it 107, right? And you're kind of going, dude, this is ridiculous. What are the odds? It's exciting,
crazy season.
Yeah, and then the Braves, they have the worst record in the playoffs. They only won 88 games,
right?
And so
here they are.
Here they are. I'm telling you, it's just well, folks. I know
I have my lucky shirt on, Dodger shirt on that I've had on all week, and I guess it hasn't really been that lucky. It was lucky during the Giants series last week, but
I left my hat in the closet. I thought I would try something different this year.
Oh, okay.
I have a Dodgers.
Maybe you should get it out.
Yeah, we'll see. I may, because so far it worked, and now it's not working. So maybe I should get the hat out. But and I know, folks, you guys didn't tune into ESPN. You tuned into the bitter truth. But we do talk other things here other than just social crap. So there you go.
And go Dodgers.
Go Dodgers. Go Dodgers. Yeah. Orale, Dodgers. All right, you guys. Hey, well, listen, appreciate y'all listening. Again, thebittertruth.info. You can, like I said, get some fabulous swag like t-shirts and things like that, and the book and everything. If you want to help support the show, or if you want to actually do the Patreon thing, we'd appreciate that as well. And as always, if this stuff makes you uncomfortable, it's supposed to. Sleep tight.